Hey y'all, and welcome to the very first episode of Photography 101. My name is David, and I will be your host for today. We will start with short episodes and only the basic knowledge to take proper photos to make it as simple as possible. Today, I will be using this Canon 80D to show you. So, first things first, we switch from the off to the on position. Second, my camera and most cameras have the mode dial right on top of it. Now, I know it looks scary with all the letters and all the symbols, but today we're just going to focus on one, which is the main one you will need. Once you learn this main one, the other ones are a combination of this main one, so you will automatically know how to work the other settings. And that's the letter M for manual. And third step, depending on which camera you have, for example, this Canon 80D automatically goes to the viewfinder. But in order to get my settings correctly, I will have to switch over to my LCD screen. And I do so by pressing right here. If your camera automatically goes to the LCD screen, you can skip this step. All right, and guess what? Up to here, we're done somewhat with the mechanical part of the camera. Now, let's get into the good stuff, the technical stuff. There's going to be three main settings that you will have to focus on if you want to take a proper photo. In this episode, I will give you a broad understanding of all three, and the next 3 episodes, we will focus on each one of them in detail. So let's switch over to our LCD screen to check out the first. The first one we will focus on is ISO. And if we click it, we see that it ranges from 200 all the way to 16,000. The only thing you need to remember about ISO right now is the lower it is, the less light can come through. But the higher it is, the more light can come through. For example, if we are outside shooting and it's cloudy or the sun is already going down, we definitely need to raise our ISO so we can let more light into our picture. But if the sun is still out and there's plenty of light, we definitely need to lower our ISO. That way our picture doesn't come out burnt. And I'm not talking about it's gonna catch on fire, it's just gonna be overexposed to light. Alright, let's look at our second setting. And that second setting is right here, and it's called aperture. And depending on your lens, it ranges. For example, this one starts at f3.5 all the way to f22. And like all these 3 settings, they have to do with light. On this one, the main thing you have to remember is it deals with the focus area. The lower the aperture, the smaller the focus area will be. The higher the aperture, the bigger the focus area will be. For example, you're trying to take a picture of a landscape, you definitely want a higher aperture to make sure you grab the whole landscape. Everything is clear. But let's say you're taking a portrait of someone's face. You definitely want to lower that aperture to only focus on the face, and everything else around will be blurry. But just like the 3 settings that we're going to be discussing, this one also has to deal with light. And as you guys saw, the lower the aperture, the more light it lets in, and the opposite is true. The higher the aperture, the less light comes through. All right, let's move on to our third setting. And that third setting, which is right here next to our aperture, is called the shutter speed. This controls 2 main things. One is obviously the light, but the second is how long the shutter will stay open. Here we see it ranges from 30 seconds all the way to 1/8,000. Now that's quite a range, But not to worry, all this means is the more movement your subject has, the higher the shutter speed must be in order to freeze that subject. The lower the shutter speed is, the less movement your subject should have. Now, as you also see, the lower my shutter speed is, the more light it will let in, and the opposite is true. The higher my shutter speed is, the less light it will let through. For example, when do you want high shutter speed? The perfect and most used example is a waterfall. The waterfall is moving fast. So you want a high shutter speed to freeze that water so you can even look at the water droplets. But let's say you have a still subject, someone that's not moving too much, maybe a landscape. On that, you can go ahead and lower that shutter speed because no movement or little movement is being done. These three settings must work in perfect harmony to take proper photos. As you can see, you win by knowing how to control light and what type of emotion you're trying to portray in your photography. For example, your photo is sad or mysterious or ominous, your lighting must be on the lower side to portray that emotion correctly. On the other side, let's say you have happy, curiosity, advancement, then your light must be on the higher side. That way we can portray that emotion correctly. Now, I know some of this might not make perfect sense now, and that's why the best piece of advice that I can possibly give y'all is go out and practice. There's no other way to learn photography but by taking pictures of everything you can at different times of the day, because the goal is to control light. That will do it for today's very first episode of Photography 101, The Beginning. Make sure to subscribe to catch all of our helpful photography tips, and remember, all we can shoot are memories, so live life.